So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the second night of the virtual public input hearings. We're very glad that you guys can join us. So on Tuesday, we had quite a few people who had signed up to provide testimony that actually didn't go through with providing testimony. And I think we only had 11 people on Tuesday actually provide testimony. So I have a feeling that's probably going to be the same. A lot of those people chose to submit their testimony directly to the committee just in a written format, which is completely fine. That's a completely acceptable way to do this as well. I think tonight's going to be a short night is my point. I'm going to go ahead and go through the procedures just so everyone's familiar in case you weren't here on Tuesday. So we are in Zoom webinar. So what we're going to do is we're going to start calling folks off one by one. We're going to first start with the South Texas region. I think we only have 4 people signed up right now to provide testimony for that area. So we'll go through those individuals first. And then after the South Texas area, we're going to open it up to accept statewide testimony. And we'll go through the list according to how you guys signed up, basically in order. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually promote you to a panelist. We'll be calling your name out, and we'll also try to type it in the chat box ahead of time so you guys can monitor the chat box for your name. So we'll make you a panelist. You'll be invited to unmute yourself and turn on your camera. We ask that you stay within about 3 minutes. That's what the House and Senate redistricting committees have limited their testimony to, the oral testimony at least. So just try to be respectful of time. If you go over, it's no big deal. But we want to respect everyone's time, so just please try to be mindful of that. Also make sure you state your name at the beginning of your testimony. And if you are representing any organization or speaking on behalf of any organization, I should say. Okay, and then once you're done, you can go ahead and turn off your camera, turn your mute back on, and we will go down to the next person on the list. So yeah, okay, all right. So really quickly though, before we get started, I wanted to see if there were any elected officials on the call that wanted to say anything. I know we had Senator Royce West on the list, but I don't see him on the call. He might not be here, and I spoke with one of his staffers who said he was going to try to be here, but he might be a little late. And then I think there was also someone from El Paso County, from Commissioner Stout's office, that was going to try to make it out. Karen, is there any way for folks to raise their hands right now?
I can turn that on if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Give me just a moment to move some things out of the way. Okay, it should be on now.
So if there's anyone that's an elected official, or you're here on behalf of an elected official, we'll go ahead and raise your hand. Oh, we've got
we have 2.
2. Let's start with Paul. I spoke with you earlier. Karen, could you promote Paul up?
Yes, he's on his way.
Thank you.
Paul, you are a panelist.
I have no comments really. I'm just here to learn for the most part. I really wanted to find out as much as I can about redistricting, and so I'm here to learn.
Oh, well, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Do you want to go to Senator Menendez next?
Well, give me one moment.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
How are y'all doing tonight? Well, yeah, the last one we did was so much fun that I decided to come back to hear some more and learn more. And you know, and I think being a member of the committee it's helpful for me to hear this testimony. And the one thing I'll tell you that was very helpful last time we were on was the fact that y'all used the format that was very similar to being in a committee hearing. And I think that if you continue to do that, that would be helpful, because as we know, there's going to be virtual testimony in the next redistricting hearings. And so I think it's important that you practice getting your comments in a timely fashion, and making your points salient and making them concise, as opposed to me. And also just really realizing and knowing that much of what you say may possibly be used in a court case. And so give very real examples of how redistricting has either gerrymandered your district or been really discriminatory in some way or fashion to your community, and disrespectful and not respected communities of interest. That will be very helpful, and it'll be good practice. So when you're testifying before the Senate and the House committees on redistricting. So thank you to the League of Women Voters for doing this, and I'll look forward to listening to you all.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And it means a lot that you're actually a member of the Senate Redistricting Committee and you're actually here to listen to the testimony. So thanks, we appreciate you being here. Okay, and with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first up, I believe we have Rochelle Garza.
Stephanie, there were a couple more hands raised. Do you want to check on those before you move forward?
Yeah, sorry. Coretta Graham? Would you like to say something before we start?
There she is.
Hello. Yes, I'm an elected official, even though I'm low on the totem pole. I'm a county chair. So that's why I raised my hand. Do you want me to provide my testimony now?
I already called someone else, but I think you're like second on the list. So you'll be going next.
I was just saying hello and just letting you know that I am in one of my several hats, I am a county chair.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And then Catherine, did you want to talk next? No, did she go away?
No, it just takes a moment to get them promoted up.
Okay, here.
There she is.
Am I unmuted? Okay, I'm not good at this. I usually just flash my picture. So do I need to do anything else?
No.
Okay.
Did you want to say some more? Catherine, you're not an elected official, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay, we were welcoming elected officials to the call.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, I'm going to mute myself again, okay?
Okay.
I just have a testimony.
Okay. I know Catherine. So I was like, I don't think she's an elected official, but I don't know. Let me ask just to be on the safe side. Okay, so let's start with Rochelle. Rochelle was first to sign up. So Rochelle Garza.
Promoting her now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So my name is Rochelle Garza, and I'm a resident of Cameron County in the Rio Grande Valley. I'm here on my own behalf, and but I am a local attorney in the region. I have lived in Brownsville for most of my life and am represented by Congressional District 34. I'm here today to share my thoughts on our district and request that our district be redrawn in a way that reflects the specific needs of our community. Currently, District 34 is shaped like a disjointed line that runs nearly 300 miles from the banks of the Rio Grande River to a portion of Gonzales County, which is east of San Antonio, Texas, and about a 4-hour drive from Brownsville, which is the southernmost city in the district. The expanse of our district is bisected by a U.S. Border Patrol checkpoint, which creates distinct issues for those living south of it. It divides the needs of our district in two, and is why I'm advocating that our district be redrawn with this in mind. Not only are we required to state our citizenship status anytime we wish to cross the checkpoint, but we are also forced to live with a much larger police force south of the checkpoint. You cannot drive 5 minutes in our region without seeing a law enforcement vehicle, whether it's state troopers, sheriffs, city police, border patrol, or immigration and customs enforcement. The reality created by the checkpoint compounds other issues that we face as a region. For example, we do not have a public hospital and have been hit especially hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. Cameron and Hidalgo counties accounted for almost 14% of Texas deaths, even though we only make up about 5% of the population of the state. We are, however, a very dynamic region. We have a young, bilingual, bicultural population due to our proximity to the US-Mexico border, but we need representation that focuses on developing economic opportunities for us and takes into account the reality of the region as a whole. We have very different needs from those in the northern portion of District 34, and our district should be redrawn to reflect that. I am respectfully requesting that our district be redrawn with this in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. It was really good testimony. I got distracted listening to you and realized that I haven't looked up who's next. Thank you. Okay, so I'm sorry if I slaughter your last name, Michael Seifert.
Yes, thank you. My name is Michael Seifert, and I am representing myself this evening. I am a long-term resident of the Rio Grande Valley here in South Texas. I live in Brownsville. For the past 25 years, I've lived here. And I have been served in my family and my community by U.S. Congressional Representative for what is now District 34. The present mapping of this district is discriminatory, it's unfair, as it includes communities of the Rio Grande Valley, but also those of Beeville and Gonzales, Bee County, Gonzales County, and other communities far from the border with Mexico and from the Gulf of Mexico, the 2 points of geography that distinguish our area from those parts of the district. I expect those communities in Gonzales County to have their own issues, but they would not include international trade zones, a seaport, or the particular threats that tropical storms and hurricanes offer coastal towns. I do not imagine that constituents living in Bee County, which is presently included in this district, worry a whole lot about a shrimping industry located in Port Isabel, about the opportunities and challenges facing a community with a SpaceX operation online, or with the threats that the liquefied natural gas industry poses Cameron County here in the southern part of the district. On the other hand, those of us living in Cameron County suffer from a true geographic isolation that those living in Gonzales, Texas, also part of this district, do not. People in the northern part of this district are but a short drive from San Antonio in its conveniences and services, while we here in the Rio Grande Valley do not have a public hospital, and if in fact need medical services not available here, must cross a federal checkpoint to get there, something that the good citizens in the other part of the district do not have to concern themselves with. I would ask you to note, 45% of the residents in our area live below the federal poverty line, in a region in which the persistent poverty continues to negatively affect the well-being of our families and our children. That, as was mentioned before, 14% of the deaths from COVID in the state of Texas have occurred in 2 counties of this district, southern parts of the district, which only account for 5% of the state's population. We have one of the highest unemployment rates in the state, even as we celebrate a medical school and billions of dollars of consumer goods that cross our local borders from Mexico each year. These are social indicators that have been verified by numerous peer-reviewed studies. But I would also like you to note that this is a region that is made extraordinary and unique, not only by its geography, but by the people who live here. This is a young, vibrant community which regularly surpasses the state's high school benchmarks. This is a strong community that achieves well-being for their families in spite of the challenges of poverty. This is a heroic community which has gained national and international attention for its generous hospitality and service, most recently to the tens of thousands of asylum seekers who passed through here, but also in the past as other heroes made of the Rio Grande Valley a place that is a dear home to 1.5 million souls. We have the right to expect our congressional representative to efficiently attend to the needs of our region, which are unique and abundant. And we expect those responsible for creating a new map would take this into consideration as they make decisions that will positively or negatively influence the lives of some very good people, my family, my neighbors. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. Okay, up next we have Coretta Graham.
Yes, I show, Coretta, I show 2 devices for you, and I'm not sure which one to promote. If you can use the raise hand feature, then I can get you on the right one. Thank you so much. It'll take just a moment. There she is.
Oh my goodness.
Good.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Coretta Graham. I am a resident since 2002, South Texas area, specifically Corpus Christi, Texas. I am testifying on several things. The first thing is why we need the 2021 redistricting process to be honest, fair, and transparent. How districts are drawn or how maps are created impact economics, the economy, healthcare, and public education. And if you have politicians elected from districts that don't reflect the population, you end up with situations where politicians support policies that the vast majority of people oppose, or they won't support policies that the vast majority of the people in their district that they're supposed to represent do support. When politicians manipulate maps for personal and political gain, it prevents residents like me from having our voices heard on all of these policies that impact us, which leads me to my second point as to why I'm testifying. I live in Congressional District 27 that was purposely gerrymandered and eliminated the Hispanic vote, purposely breaking up a community, taking away this community, which is predominantly over 50% Hispanic, taking away their ability to have and elect someone that will represent the needs of their community. Congressional District 27 goes from Corpus Christi, which is Nueces County, to Victoria, to parts of Bastrop, which is near Austin, and then all further out to Wharton, which is Houston. So you have central Texas cities put together with coastal Bend cities, and there are 2 different communities. And so it was deliberately, they call it politically gerrymandering, but I think the impact of Congressional District 27 is racial gerrymandering, because for years we had Hispanic congressperson who represented the community well because it was predominantly Hispanic voting population. And now that basically that community has the creation of the district has cracked what they call cracking, and basically silence Hispanic community from having a voice. We've been trying for the last 4 years to get a Hispanic person elected that can represent the majority of that community, but that has been very difficult with the gerrymandering that was created as a result of the last redistricting cycle. My third point is that in order for our democracy to function, the public needs to have a voice in the process. So I'm asking that the committee commit to holding public hearings virtually or in person with public testimony on maps before they are passed. They must give the public sufficient notice and the capability to review the maps before the hearing. I would also ask the legislators to draw the maps to explain why they chose to draw them the way they did, and to not hide any communications they had regarding drawing the maps. In order to build trust that the maps have not been unfairly manipulated, I'm asking the legislator not to look at partisanship when it comes up to these maps, but actually look at the communities and see how drawing these maps would impact the community. Specifically, I'm asking that District 27, Congressional District 27 be redrawn back to the way it was, because this politically gerrymandered district effectively is racial gerrymandering. And I anticipate there's going to be lawsuits if this process is not done honestly, fairly, and transparently. This is an opportunity for the Texas legislatures to finally get this process right and avoid millions of taxpayer dollars in lawsuits. So I'm hoping that my testimony will be heard and taken to heart. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me this evening.
Thank you so much, Greta, for being here. We appreciate your testimony and for contributing to this effort. Okay, next up is Tim.
So Tim came in on Coretta's link. So the name is going to show up as Coretta, but this is the correct one. So Tim, you are.
I sent it to him because he didn't. He said he didn't get it, so I sent him.
No worries. No worries.
You there, Tim?
I am there. Can you guys see me?
No, not
yet.
Oh, wait, here we go. Maybe let me get it. How about now?
Excellent.
All right. Sorry about that. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for my friend Coretta helping me out there when I didn't get the link. I'm a 39-year resident of Corpus Christi. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and I've been a lawyer for 39 years, and that experience has taught me that process drives policy. How the process works is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and what produces the end result. Unfortunately, Texas's end result regarding redistricting has been historically shrouded in mystery, mired in litigation, and has resulted in legislators being less representative of the people of our state than they should be. In the words of a prominent Republican member of the House earlier this year, Texas's redistricting process has been, quote, an annuity plan for lawyers, close quote, because of the litigation it engenders. Therefore, today I'm going to focus my remarks on some short-term and some long-term parts of the redistricting process. Central to everything, of course, is complying with the U.S. Constitution and the Voting Rights Act. That's a given. For the long term, Texas needs an independent redistricting commission, an IRC. Many states have already gone to that, and we need to do so also. Unfortunately, each member of the redistricting committee has a direct conflict of interest. I am sure that when drawing lines, trying to give yourself a safe district is a high priority. That should not be part of the process, even though it is constitutionally permissible. Your benchmark should not be, is it legal? That is a bare minimum. Your benchmark should be, how will our Texas House, Senate, Congressional representatives best represent all of the people of our state? I strongly urge you accordingly to hold a hearing in the House and in the Senate on HB 282 that's already been introduced regarding establishing an IRC. You do not need an amendment to the Texas Constitution to draw lines for Congress. So start there by enacting the statute in the 2021 legislative session, establishing an IRC to draw our congressional boundaries. And then you can start the process next year to amend the Texas Constitution so that we have an IRC that draws the Texas Senate, House, and any other relevant state boundaries. But we've got a bad process that we have now, but we've got to deal with it. So let me talk a little bit about the short term, the things you should do so that we can improve this very flawed process. Hold hearings via Zoom to get public input. Do this both before and after you get the census data. Obviously, much better after the census data to the extent possible. Hold enough hearings that you adequately hear from each distinct area of our big state and hear from the different cultural and ethnic perspectives across our state. As part of that process, solicit and accept proposed maps as part of the process. After the hearings are held, the committee come up with a proposed map, but before that map is voted on, allow at least 4 full days of hearings on this proposed map. 1 day for Congress, 1 for the House, 1 for the Senate, 1 for any other day, and any cleanup points on the 4th day. And if you need more time, give yourselves more time. When you publish your proposed map, explain the criteria that you used in coming up with it. Be sure to address how each proposed map would affect the ability of historically poorly represented groups in our state to elect candidates from their community. Make it clear that no part of the criteria is achieving a particular partisan result or ensuring that any member has a safe district. Allow at least 10 business days to elapse from the time the committee proposes its map before the first hearing so that there's adequate time to evaluate the proposed maps and consider how other ones might be proposed that are better. After the committee votes to approve its map, but before the legislature votes on its maps, follow the same process. That will define whether Texans are represented well or poorly in the next 10 years. As you know, federal judge Javier Rodriguez recently criticized Texas's 2011 redistricting process because the legislature failed to give the maps, quote, visible to the public, close quote. As a consequence, the federal court in 2019 almost reimposed the Voting Rights Act's pre-clearance process on Texas. Judge Rodriguez's comments were a clear shot across the bow of the Texas legislature. And if you don't want to make a subsequent lawsuit easy for those who may challenge the maps in court, please heed that warning shot and allow meaningful input on proposed maps before they are adopted. Also, before the proposed maps are adopted, you need to make the underlying data that you use to draw the maps available. Otherwise, you can't tell if the conclusions derived and shown in the maps are legitimate or not. If you do not allow hearings before the maps are voted on, after the citizens have had an opportunity to review the data behind them, the input will all be abstract and really just a sham show if a lawsuit follows. If you do not follow this process, public hearings for general input, public input before any specific map is approved, and access to all the underlying data used to draw the maps, the legislature will just be figuratively and patronizingly patting citizens on the head. Thanks for your input. Now we're going to go to the closed committee room to do some horse trading among ourselves and do what we want. To prevent such horse trading, all communications by legislators need to be exclusively in public hearings. There should be no legislative privilege to shield communications regarding redistricting. Put this in the upcoming Senate and House rules and have real consequences if they are violated. If you're on the redistricting committee, you're off if you violate it. If you violate it more than once, you should be off all of your other committee assignments in 2021. That is how serious this is. I heard somebody say they wanted concrete examples of the current bad process. We have a very concrete example right now is our 27th Congressional Representative, Michael Cloud. Mr. Cloud is from Victoria. Most of the districts is in Corpus Christi. I heartily agree with everything that Ms. Graham said a few minutes ago about our 27th district. And to just give you an example of how hyper-partisan Mr. Cloud is, which has been produced by the fact that it's a highly, highly Republican district. He recently criticized Attorney General Barr, who has been far from shy in protecting President Trump's interests, for not being diligent enough to try to find fraud that no lawyer for Mr. Trump has been able to find. Please don't again for another 10 years voice such hyper-partisanship on us like Congressman Cloud. In conclusion, I implore you to use the processes I have outlined above when redrawing our political boundaries. Then our politics will begin to move from the hyper-partisan, poisonous atmosphere we now have in politics to ones that are fairer, more representative of the people of our state, and more reasoned. A politics that is designed to bring us together rather than continue to pull us apart and continue to inflame partisan gridlock. Which type of politics we end up with in Texas for the next 10 years is in your hands. Please do the right thing. Thank you for considering my comments.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for being here tonight, and thanks for your testimony and contribution. Up next, we have Judy Ackerman again from El Paso. There you are. Hey, Judy.
Thanks very much. Members of the redistricting committees, my name is Judy Ackerman. I live in El Paso, Texas, and I represent myself. Thank you for this opportunity to share some comments about redistricting. Thank you for participating and listening to the virtual public testimony. Both the Senator Joan Hoffman and Representative Phil King, the chairs of the redistricting committees, have stated that fair, legal, and open legislative redistricting process is necessary. Also, we need to maximize public participation throughout the process. So please hold more hearings. Do it virtually, in person, by phone, any way you can, but please hold more hearings. Especially ensure that the public has a chance to comment before the maps are voted out of committee. When you draw the maps, please ignore the residential addresses of the incumbent or any political candidates. Draw maps that make sense from the physical geography and the communities of interest, not maps that favor a political candidate. Please use nesting of political districts. So the idea is if people live within a particular House district, then they should also live in the same Senate district. You have the power to draw fair maps. Please do. It's the right thing to do, and we need you to do it. Thank you very much for your kind consideration of fair maps.
Thanks, Judy. Thanks for being here tonight. Okay, next up we have Joshua Simmons.
Josh, you can we lost Josh. Let me see if he just fell. I think he fell off completely, Stephanie. You may need to move to the next one and then come back to Josh.
Okay, go back to the checklist really quick. Give us just 1 second, sorry. It looks like we're going to go all the way down to Scott Kemp-Schaefer.
Promoting him now.
Hi, I'm Scott Kemp-Schaefer, and I'm a citizen in U.S. House District 25 here in Texas. And my comments have to do with the way the current map system is drawn. It is too difficult to organize constituent groups. Geographically, the district is laid out going all the way from Cleburne, I believe, southwest of Fort Worth, all the way down into Austin, and trying to organize with other constituents to be able to convey what we want as a constituency to our representative, Roger Williams, has been exceedingly difficult simply because of the geography of the district. The way that it's laid out, there are two district offices. One is in Cleburne, the other is in Austin. And it is also difficult for constituents in the district to get access to Representative Williams unless they live in Austin or near the Fort Worth area. So that makes it very difficult for constituents, perhaps say in Killeen or Fort Hood, to gain access to Representative Williams if they want to physically go to his office to talk to his staff. Now that is not part and parcel of the way the district is laid out, but that is the way that it currently exists. And I think particularly for this reason, it's unfair to diverse constituencies. For example, those that are living in Bell County that tend to be more low socioeconomic status or of diverse cultural backgrounds to gain access to Representative Williams, particularly considering the fact that town halls are few and far between for the time that I've been a active participant in the district. And so what happens is that the representative basically chooses his constituents and vice versa, instead of vice versa in the process. The representative decided he wanted to run for our district and basically had a map that was drawn to suit his political ends. So the other point that I wanted to make is that I don't think outside entities should have a hand in drawing the maps. Only those that are in state and are being drawn in a nonpartisan manner should have a say in the process. So I totally embrace the points that were already made by some of the other citizens living down in the District 27 in particular. And my desire is that the boundary lines basically just make common sense. Our district boundary is drawn in the shape of a fishhook, and again, this extends all the way from near Fort Worth down to Austin. So it makes no sense as to why we would all be in the same district together. So anyway, those are the points that I wanted to make, and I do appreciate the time and attention that that you all are giving tonight and holding these recorded hearings. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for being here, and thanks for your testimony. We appreciate it. Okay, up next on the list is Ashley Chang. Hey, Ashley.
Oh, thank you all. All right. Hi. Yes, I'm Ashley Chang. I am representing myself tonight, and I am also a graduate student in social work at the University of Texas at Austin. I just finished my last final for the whole semester today, actually, and upon turning in that last paper, I immediately opened a new document to draft the thoughts that I wanted to share with y'all tonight, because I honestly am so grateful for the opportunity to have my voice heard on this topic. And I hope that you as the Redistricting Committee will continue to hold more of your own hearings for the public to have that same opportunity. And I'm also here today as a board member of the Asian Pacific Islander Public Affairs Association, or APAPA. And AAPIs represent the fastest growing population in Texas. You know, we've grown at a staggering rate of 137% in the last 2 decades. Asian Americans now make up about 5.5% of our electorate, and I'm sure many of these numbers will continue to grow with the new census data. But I also don't think it's a coincidence that we still have never had an Asian American from Texas represent us in the US Congress from either party in any of our history. And I think a lot of that is because there are barriers to access voting, to access our representatives, as many have talked about tonight, and to access civic engagement in general, especially for our communities, that really can only be addressed if given the opportunity to work closely as a group, to organize, to be in contact with our local elected officials in the Texas House, in the Texas Senate, you know, even the State Board of Education on the ground. It's how democracy is supposed to work, which becomes really challenging in the districts that we have right now. And that's why it's so important to keep these communities together. It will not only make the process of government more representative for those who share a common language and culture, but more efficient for those in power as well. And right now, the area where I and most of my family members live in North Austin has the highest AAPI density in our area, and it's split into 3 US congressional districts. And just a few miles apart, yet spread out, is Texas 10, Texas 31, and Texas 17. And my personal district where I live outstretches all the way to the edge of Houston, which makes it impossible for our US Congress member to be able to represent all of us from Austin all the way to Houston with such different needs. And look, I'm a first generation Texan in my family. I graduated summa cum laude with a bachelor's of science in communications. And as I mentioned, I'm currently pursuing a master's in social work. And with all of those credentials and all of that privilege, I still find a lot about reaching out to my representatives very intimidating, and a lot of our process and access to social services absolutely confusing. And according to the nonpartisan nonprofit API Vote, 79% of Asian Americans in Texas speak a language other than English at home. And of those, more than 40% speak English less than very well. And these are members of our community who matter, who are protected under the Voting Rights Act as well, and who need to be kept together so they can have a chance for their voices to be heard. And after English and Spanish, right now in Texas, Vietnamese, Mandarin, Hindi, and Tagalog are the next most common languages spoken in our state. So we need to create maps with a really honest look at that data. We need to be willing also to disaggregate that data to also recognize that Asian Americans, while we have a lot in common in terms of community needs, are still not a monolith. There's a real problem in the narrative of how we talk about Asian Americans in this country. And I don't want my story of access to education to drown out the many stories in our community. The idea of Asian Americans as this model minority is a really problematic myth, because more than 150,000 Asian Americans in Texas lack health insurance, and more than 130,000 live in poverty. And many in our community are proud to be Americans because under our democracy, there should be a shot of coming out of those situations. I mean, that's the dream, right? So, some have also fled situations in their home countries full of government corruption. And we cannot let the drawing of these district maps have even the illusion of corruption behind closed doors. We cannot let them be influenced by partisan purposes. I urge Texas to adopt an independent redistricting commission, as others have recommended this evening, and at the very least for the committee to hold public hearings throughout the entire process of drafting and passing these maps, making sure that we have reasonable time as a community for public comment, for revised map recommendations, so that we can ensure trust and accountability and ultimately faith in this system. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. And thank you for your testimony. Okay, up next we have Sam Martin.
Sam, you are good to go. Sam may be having trouble. Sam, are you available?
Yes.
There we go. Thank you.
One moment. My name is Sam Martin. I currently reside in Austin, less than 4 miles south of the state capitol. I've lived in the same neighborhood and participated in the neighborhood organization for over 40 years. My neighborhood association is called South River City Citizens. Our boundaries are Lady Bird Lake, South Congress Avenue, Ben White Boulevard, and Parker Lane, a few blocks east of I-35. When our association was founded in 1972, our neighborhood was defined by the catchment area of our elementary school. It remains the same today. I'm a member of the neighborhood, but I'm not speaking for the neighborhood organization, but as a resident of this neighborhood, which has not been well served by recent redistricting. I'm testifying today because my neighborhood is split east-west by 2 state Senate districts, 21 and 35, and split north and south by 2 congressional districts, 14 and 21. When we have matters to be addressed by the legislature or Congress, our neighborhood does not have one person to represent us. For instance, if there is a question regarding I-35, we have 1 state senator representing the part of our neighborhood east of the highway and another representing the west part. The 2 state senators may not give us the same priority as if we were fully in one district or the other. Similarly, if a question regarding private higher education is raised in Congress, we have 1 congressman who represents the St. Edward's University campus and another who represents many of its students who live across the street from campus. I believe we are not well represented because our neighborhood is split between districts. So this is my request, that our neighborhood be represented by 1 House district, which lies within 1 Senate district, which is fully inside 1 congressional district. I appreciate your attention to help make redistricting a process which provides better representation for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sam. Thanks for your testimony and thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate it. Okay, up next, I believe we have Marilyn Guida.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? How are we doing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Start my video. Okay. Hi, so I'm addressing this to the House Redistricting Committee members. We only get 1 chance every 10 years to participate in how maps of our representatives' districts are drawn. That's why I'm here today. My name is Marilyn Guida. I have lived in El Paso, Texas since 2008. I'm representing myself only. I would like to start by saying that the most important thing for this committee to do is to respect federal and state law, including the Voting Rights Act. None of my testimony today should be used by the legislature to justify diminishing the ability of a minority group to elect the candidate of their choice or artificially distorting maps for racial or partisan political purposes. It is of utmost importance to keep communities whole and grouped with nearby communities with similar shared interests. I'd like to point out that when redistricting bills are presented to the public, all the maps in the bill should be made public so that citizens and the media can see the maps and thus decide whether to support or oppose the bill during hearings, public hearings. I suggest you examine maps of El Paso, Texas, the House districts, the El Paso City Council districts, the El Paso County Public School districts, the El Paso County Commissioner districts, and El Paso income distribution and education levels. One suggestion for drawing districts that are fair is to look at various commonalities among the people, which might include ethnicity, age, income level, geographic and topographic characteristics of the landscape, party registration, education level, future development, and other factors. To accomplish this means taking a deep dive into the most recent and most reliable sources of information. It means getting input from experts and from citizens. Sometimes just looking at a map and knowing the topography, the freeway alignments, watersheds, and/or waterways will make it clear where to investigate boundaries that might not make sense when you simply look at them on a flat map. Other important factors are future growth, new development plans, redevelopment plans, new and expanded highways, and access to services, basic services like water, sewer, and utilities. Two districts in El Paso that I think you should carefully examine are the State House Districts 77 and 78, which straddles both sides of the Franklin Mountains, the northeast and the northwest sides. I have lived in Northeast El Paso for the past 12 years. Just in the past month, I moved to Central El Paso. El Pasoans know that the Northeast is very different from the northwest side of the Franklins. The Northeast is more ethnically diverse, more likely has lower average income than on the northwest side, has more people of retirement age, more retired and active military individuals and families because of the location of Fort Bliss nearby, and more people living in apartments than in the Northwest. With the passage of the El Paso Municipal Management District in far northeast El Paso, north of Trans Mountain Road to the Texas-New Mexico state line, the Northeast will experience an increase in population over the next 10 plus years. Meanwhile, more growth is expected on the northwest side of the Franklins, especially north of Trans Mountain Road also. El Paso Water is planning to sell 7,000 acres on both sides of the Franklin Mountains from north of El Paso Road to the state line with New Mexico. This will bring in more people to Districts 77 and 78. These two districts need to be carefully examined for appropriate boundary changes. Good luck with your work, and thank you for your efforts to create fair and equitable districts for our representatives.
All right. Thank you so much, Marilyn, for your testimony, and thanks for contributing. We appreciate you being here. Okay, up next, I believe, is Emma Acosta. Emma, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and turn your camera on if you'd like.
Okay, I've unmuted myself. Yes, can everyone see me now?
Yep, you're good to go.
Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to participate today. My name is Emma Acosta, and I am testifying today on addressing the issues of making the 2021 redistricting open, fair, and transparent. I'm here as a member of Texas League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC, District 4, and the League of Women Voters, El Paso. The districts that are drawn will be in place for the next 10 years. These districts affect real people who live and work in these districts. These districts affect every political issue, from the economy to healthcare to public education to transportation planning and funding. If politicians are elected from districts that do not reflect the population, it will have situations where legislators support policies that most people oppose, or they will not support policies that the vast majority of people do support. When policymakers manipulate maps for personal or political gain, it prevents residents like me from having our voices heard on all of these policies that affect us. Breaking up communities will take away the community's ability to come together and advocate for important issues. In El Paso, we have a congressional district number 23 that is contiguous with another city that is 600 miles away in San Antonio, as well as many other rural communities along the same route. We are a unique city as we are the largest border community in Texas. While San Antonio may say they are the gateway to Mexico, I assure you that El Paso is less than a quarter mile across from Juarez, Mexico. Thus, we have a unique and challenging situations, much different than San Antonio or the rural areas along the same route to San Antonio. This district will have a congressperson that is not fully committed to listening to the concerns of El Paso. I care about issues like healthcare, affordable housing, gun control, transportation planning and funding, economic development, as well as urban infrastructure. When maps are unfairly engineered, we end up with a legislature that represents special interests and politicians instead of representing the people. Because the Texas legislation meets only every other year, and because of the timing of the census, our community and the public unfortunately have a very limited time to review, understand, and comment on any proposed maps the legislature may develop. We have experienced in the past that state legislatures have made this worse by not being open and transparent, but by doing everything behind closed doors, discriminating against minority communities, and not giving the public any opportunity to comment on what is happening with the district maps. The public needs to have a voice in the process so that we Texans and El Pasoans have a fair and equitable representation in order for our democracy to function. I am asking that this committee commit to having an open and transparent government, to holding public hearings with public testimony on any maps they develop and before these maps are passed by the legislature. You must give the public sufficient notice and capability to review the maps before any hearing takes place. This is what is called open and transparent government. Legislators who are tasked with the drawing of maps must also be able to explain why the maps were drawn in the manner they are being presented and why they chose to draw them the way they did. Additionally, all communications they have had regarding drawing the maps should be made available to the public. Providing the public with any communications from other legislatures and the public will build trust with us, the public, that the maps have not been unfairly manipulated. I pray that the legislature does not look at partisanship when drawing up Texas maps. This is an opportunity that only happens once every decade. It is time for our Texas legislature to be open and transparent, to hold public meetings, to allow the public to voice their concerns and recommendations, and finally to accept that this process is in the best interest of the public. Being open and transparent with public meetings and allowing voters to weigh in will avoid millions of taxpayer dollars in years of lawsuits. I implore that you will take this testimony to heart. I thank you today for listening to me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma, for being here tonight, and thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you.
You have a beautiful Christmas tree, by the way.
Thank you. To see the rest of the house is a mess.
Okay, up next we have Catherine Palmeira. I can't say your last name. I'm so sorry, Catherine
Palmeira.
Palmeira. Thank you.
That's okay. It's a difficult name. My name is Catherine Palmeira. I moved here from Austin back to Austin 17 years ago, and I currently live behind the University of Texas in the North Campus area, otherwise known as District 25. I often have to stop and think about that because if I walk a few blocks north, I'm in District 10. I can turn east and walk a few blocks and I'm in District 35. When I go to see my daughters, I drive north to the first daughter's house and she is in District 10. I drive a few blocks further north, and I am in District 17 to see the second. To see the third, I turn left, and I go west. I am back in District 25, and then I go south through District 10 to get back to my district of 25. And we only live 10 miles apart. When I kayak, I can dock in District 35. I row through District 21. I get to District 25. I turn around and I come back. And I don't know if you can follow all of that. You can play a card game here in Austin and drive around and try to guess which congressional district you're in. When I'm asked to explain what congressional districting is to people, I often use the analogy of 5 fingers. Each finger, 4 fingers, I should say, is attached to a larger hand. District 10, the first finger, the hand extends east. It goes hundreds of miles east to Harris County, expands out to a large region. The second, District 17, goes north. This little finger goes all the way up to Waco and expands as well into a much more rural district than is in Austin. District 25 goes south. It scoops up Hayes County and then takes a sharp turn north to Dallas. There are 2 skinny little fingers here in Austin. District 21 goes south to San Antonio. It then comes back north, scoops up Comal County, and it balloons out west all the way to Leakey County, I believe it is, up to District 16. My Texas heritage is from Presidio County, and I was in District 16 for a number of years. That is the largest congressional district in the country, I believe. And District 35, the last skinny little finger, hugs up against I-35 from Austin to San Antonio. And I believe that hand got chopped off because it doesn't expand anywhere. That's quite a road trip, but I think you get the picture. There are 36 congressional districts in Texas. 5 of them run through the city of Austin and Travis County. 4 are controlled by one party, and not one is anchored here in Austin or in Travis County. But you know all this. It's not hard to see what happened here. This is map manipulation. It's a disregard for the voters and citizens of Austin and Travis County. This is the divide and conquer strategy. But probably most egregious of all is the disdain it reflects of the Black and brown communities, the people of color who, when disenfranchised, ensures that they are neglected of all the essentials needed to make a community thrive. Essentials that they so rightfully deserve and are so rightfully owed to them. You know this too. By design, this may appear advantageous to the people who drew these maps, but the demographics are shifting. The people are moving, communities are growing. 10 years ago, people weren't paying close attention to this, but they are now, we are now, and I find a lot of young people especially are paying attention to this because this affects their future. Today's map may not reflect tomorrow's vote for those who drew them. I am here simply to ask that a fair, independent state redistricting committee be appointed to review, examine, reconsider, redraw the gerrymandered map of Texas. So let's let Texas try to be an example of fairness. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for your testimony, and thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, I think the last one we have on our list is Lisa Tate. And then after Lisa, we will open it up and ask and make sure that there isn't anyone else that would like to go that we might have missed, or if you maybe decided at the last minute to provide testimony. But yeah, Lisa Tate is next.
I think I'm unmuted.
You are. We can hear
Sorry.
you.
Giving everybody vertigo. Okay, so I'm sorry. Good evening. My name is Lisa Tate, and I'm a resident of the city of West University Place in Harris County. We are next to the city of Southside Place and have similar demographics and culture and should remain in the same district. That's important to me. But tonight I want to point out that gerrymandering has already subverted our democracy here in Texas. One party has more legislative seats than they are entitled to, while another party is going short. My democratic rights to elect representatives has been interfered with. This is unacceptable and it needs to stop. Now, I would like to use some of the words of the League of Women Voters. First, I ask that a public hearing be held before any map, i.e. bill, is passed out of committee after the actual maps for the bill are drawn. And I ask that proposed maps be put on display for the public to view during those hearings. Redistricting maps cannot and should not be a secret from people they profoundly and directly affect. Second, and finally, the most important thing for this committee to do is to respect federal and state law, including the Voting Rights Act. My testimony and data should not be used by the legislature to artificially distort maps for racial or partisan purposes. Let us all turn our hearts and minds to honoring and practicing the democracy we all cherish. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. Okay, and now we're going to open it up to everyone else all that is here on the call still. Was there anyone else that wanted to provide testimony that wasn't called yet? I believe Karen is going to turn on the raise your hand.
It is on.
Any more takers? I need to check the chat, make sure no one else is left in the chat.
We have a raised hand from Susie Bell Gosley. And I'm bringing her in now.
Yeah, hey, Susie Bell.
I am Susie Bell Gosley. I live in Dallas, Texas. And I have spoken to the hearings, the open hearings that they've had in 2000 and then in 2010. So I've had a little bit of experience with this process. And so I appreciate your having the conversation here to make it easier for us to add our comments. I think the most important thing is that we need an independent special commission. I've not been able to hear everyone else, but I really would like to have that seriously considered. And that is independent, meaning that it reflects the diversity of each unit of government, including citizens at large, representatives of public interest groups, and members of minority groups. There are many different systems for public decision-making and collaborative decision-making that have been developed over the last 20 years that work very well. So getting some professional help with that would be wonderful. I'd like for the process to include specific timelines, a very clear process that's made public to everyone in different forms of media. Even radio stations, Black, Hispanic, and white, and Asian, everything, so that more people have access to the information and can participate. We'd like full disclosure of that process with these public hearings, and that's basic to our democracy. We have to do something to increase the trust in our government, and I think that this process will make it happen. Of course, we want the open meetings in an unbiased manner with citizen participation and access to all levels and steps of the process. Also, there should be minutes, and they should be taped and placed on the internet for people to observe in person as well as after the meeting, so that people have full access to the entire process. The redistricting plan should be adopted by the redistricting authority with more than just a simple majority vote. Remedial provisions established in the event that the redistricting authority fails to enact a plan. Specific provision should be made for court review of redistricting measures and for courts to require the redistricting authority to act on a specific schedule. The timeline should be very clear from the beginning and an unbiased process throughout. I would also like to add that each of the districts should be equal in population and have geographic integrity. I'm thinking specifically about West Dallas that was subdivided and split so that they basically have been powerless. You would think they would have more power with having their district split and having 2 representatives, etc. But actually it means that nobody completely represents the district, and a lot of people don't even know who their elected officials are. It's critical to keep these districts clear enough that everyone knows who their representative is, instead of saying, I don't know, and they really basically don't know how to find out. Effective representation should be also with racially diverse and having translation for people that need it. We would like to have this a completely nonpartisan process, and having truly an open process, not just representatives and senators arguing for their own district and selecting their own constituents is really important. Communities of interest are terribly important. We've talked about that since 2000. And yet it still happens that they are divided. So compactness and competitiveness may also be considered as criteria, as long as they do not conflict with other criteria. And for example, the West Dallas area is divided with Irving. Even though it's Dallas, it goes into Irving. And the eastern part of West Dallas is represented by one person, and then the western side is, the 2 sides do not have the same representation. So it's important for us to be completely fair in this and not just protect incumbents. Preferential treatment, we should not consider preferential treatment to political parties and affiliation of parties. We're looking at fairness, and when you have collaborative decision making, you usually have the best outcomes. It's important for every person in the state to have access It may not be that they sign up and they watch and they listen and they learn, but the having access to all of these meetings is terribly important. I know that I sat in 2000 for, I think it was over 13 hours, 12, 13 hours. I'm sure of it because I left the meeting at 1:45 in the morning, one of the last people to speak. But we stayed there and they made it fair to a degree, except the elected officials got to go first and give their comments, then they left. And then the citizens gave their comments. It would really be best if elected officials even hear the comments from the public. So I encourage you to make democracy work by making this process very fair for everybody. Fair is a term we understand on the baseball field or the basketball court. But in government, it's one that we're trying to figure out. What does fair mean? And I think everybody really has a good idea of what that means. So I appreciate that you are working to have trust in this process. And thank you for making democracy work.
Thanks, Susie Bell. Thanks for being here tonight and thanks for your testimony. We appreciate it. Okay, did anyone else have a raised hand? I don't think I saw one. No? Okay, so I think with that, that was the last testimony that we had for this evening. So I just wanted to give everyone two quick reminders. First of all, the transcription for this event will be sent off tomorrow. We'll probably be getting it back over the weekend, so you can expect it in your inbox on Monday. I will copy and paste out your specific testimony and send it back to you, and then I'll give you very specific instructions on how you can submit it to the House and Senate committees for their consideration and for their review. The other reminder I wanted to give was the League has put together a call to action. It's just gonna, it's an email form that you can fill out. So you fill out your name and your contact information. And we're asking both the House and Senate to seriously consider holding a virtual public, not virtual public input hearings. This is for the entirety of the House and Senate. We're asking them to have virtual hearings in the upcoming session. It's looking likely that might not be possible. So we definitely want to make our voices heard and advocate for an inclusive process for the upcoming legislative session. So that should be posted on the League's website tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And if you agree with the statements that we have prepared, we ask that you forward it along to your elected officials. Okay, and with that, I want to just thank everyone who stayed on the whole time to hear everyone's testimony. Yeah, thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you later.